Neuromuscular responses. For a muscular contraction to take place, the nervous system must integrate with the muscular system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord and controls almost all of what the body or mind does. The PNS, the peripheral nervous system, contains the nerves which leave the brain and spinal cord. The PNS functions to send information out quickly and allows the central nervous system to communicate with the rest of the body. There are two divisions in the PNS, the sensory division, which picks up the sensory stimuli, and the motor division, which sends information from the brain to the muscles and glands. And it also includes the somatic and autonomic nervous system. The muscle contraction occurs when an action potential travels along nerves to the muscles. Once the stimulus is detected from the sensory organs, it is sent via the sensory neuron. The sensory neuron travels to the CNS and the brain decides what to do. Then the impulse is sent via a motor neuron shown in the figure on the right, which is a myelinated sheath, where the impulse travels along the saltatory conduction, a process whereby the impulse jumps over the myelin to speed up depolarization. The axon labelled in the diagram has several components, such as the motor neuron, synaptic boutons, end plates, and muscle fibers. The name for the bare axon is called the nodes of Ranvier, and they are unmyelinated. The parts with the myelin are called the myelin sheath. Depolarization occurs between the myelin sheath. The impulse arrives at the neuromuscular junction. This is the junction at which a chemical synapse is formed by the contact between the muscle fiber and motor neuron. When the signal reaches the presynaptic membrane, a chemical is released called ACH, which is a neurotransmitter, and its function is to bind to receptors outside muscle fiber. When a motor neuron approaches a muscle, it branches out into several extensions that end in synaptic boutons. The synaptic bouton found in the presynaptic membrane is separated from the end plate by the synaptic cleft. The junctional folds contain many acetylcholine receptors in the postsynaptic membrane. The acetylcholine binds to the receptors into the junctional folds, which allows ion channels to open to allow positive sodium ions to flow, causing depolarization. Excitatory postsynaptic potential. An enzyme called acetylcholine esterase is found at the neuromuscular junction, and its function is to break down acetylcholine and also terminate its effect on the muscle fiber, ending the communication between the motor neuron and the muscle fiber. Motor unit recruitment. When recruiting motor units, it is dependent on how much force is wanting to be generated. The brain recruits the motor units. A motor unit is the nerve and the fiber it controls. For finer muscle movements, such as in the eye, smaller motor units are recruited. However, for larger muscle groups, such as in the legs, quadriceps, hamstrings, larger motor units are recruited. If a maximal force is wanted to be generated, lots of motor units are recruited. The all or non-responsive motor units means that when the impulse travels through all of the muscle fibers it is connected to, it will contract too. In the diagram above, it shows the force production from low to high and the recruitment of motor units. It shows that a low force production means type 1 muscle fibers and a low number of motor units recruited. However, for a high force of production, such as performing reps from 1 to 5, like a squat, a high level of power and strength is needed, and type 2 muscle fibers will be used, and a high number of motor units will be recruited. Different muscle fibers have different contractility speeds, and therefore require varying sizes of motor units when contracting. For type 1 muscle fibers, they have a very slow contraction speed, a very low fatigue speed, and their diameter is small. In type 2A fiber types, they have a very fast contractile speed, intermediate fatigue speed, and a medium diameter or size. Type 2B fiber types have a very fast contractile speed and fatigue very quickly, and are also very large in diameter and size. The thicker the motor units will attach to type 2 muscle fibers. Smaller motor units are attached to type 1 muscle fibers. When one action potential causes all the muscle fibers in a motor unit to contract, this is known as a twitch. When there is a twitch and another twitch straight after, this is known as a twitch summation. When there is an action potential, then a twitch, and then another action potential, and then a twitch, and then another action potential, and then a twitch, this is called a tetanus. It is a smooth contraction. Tetanus gets the most tension. To increase the force of contraction, you increase the firing frequency. This means more action potentials are sent faster. Proprioceptors. Muscle spindus apparatus. It is a sensory receptor located inside muscle and is wrapped in neuron axons which detect stretch of fibers. Receptors help to relay information about kinesthesis sent to the brain, about positioning of the body parts to gravity. Gamma motor neurons innervate muscle spindle at each end and allows contraction of intrafusal fibers, increasing the sensitivity of the stretch. Muscle spindles are made up of intrafusal fibers and run next to extrafusal fibers, acting as a receptor, providing information on muscle length and the rate of change in the muscle length. The intrafusal fibers make it more sensitive, and they stretch before the impact of a jump, for example. A stretch reflex. If a skeletal muscle is rapidly stretched, such as in the leg, the muscle stretch reflex will cause the muscle to contract very quickly as a protective reflex. It is an involuntary efferent response to the afferent or stimulus. The knee jerk test helps to illustrate this. The hammer hits the tendon, and the tendon stretches, which pulls on the kneecap, pulling on the muscles. Receptors detect the stretch, and muscle spindle apparatus is the receptor. The information travels through the nerve to the peripheral nervous system to the spinal cord, forming an excitatory synapse. The neuron sends an axon out through nerves of the peripheral nervous system back to the same muscle. Synapson and excites the skeletal muscle, causing an involuntary contraction. The antagonist during this process is inhibited from lower motor neurons. Afterwards, sensory information is sent to the brain, telling it what was going on. The stretch-shorten cycle. The stretching of the muscle and the reflex that occurs for the muscle to contract. The connective tissue in the tendons act like an elastic band. When it is stretched, it snaps back. Stretching the muscle at a faster rate results in a greater activation of the stretch-shorten reflex. A counter movement jump takes advantage of this. This movement carries a lot of elastic energy, whereas if you were to pause in the squat position, you would lose the elastic energy and the reflex, resulting in a jump that will not reach as high. This can be helpful in sporting applications such as in high jump. When running up and getting ready to jump, the athlete makes sure when they bend at the knee to jump, make it fast so that the stretch-shorten cycle is in process and the jump carries as much momentum and elastic energy as possible to jump as high. Golgi tendon organs. Golgi tendon organs are sensory organs found in junctions between muscles and tendons. They are very sensitive to tension and they do not change length. The function of Golgi tendon organs at low stimulation is to provide feedback to the central nervous system for fine-tuning movement. This is how they work. Firstly, increased tension stimulates the sensory receptor. The sensory neuron is then excited and travels to the brain. Then, within the spinal cord, sensory neurons activate inhibitory interneuron. The motor neuron then becomes inhibited, and then the muscle attached to the tendon relaxes and relieves the excess tension. The antagonist muscle will contract to help with this movement, kind of like an opposite to the muscle stretch reflex. The multi-stage fitness test in neuromuscular responses is contrasting to that of the Wingate test. In the bleep test, all three types of muscle fibers are used. At the beginning of the test, slow oxidative muscle fibers are recruited, and this is because the start is a very low intensity and the ATP will be produced by aerobic glycolysis. Only a small amount of force is required at the lower stages, and therefore smaller motor units will be recruited to the muscle fibers. However, as the test increases in intensity, the muscle fiber type working begins to change. As the intensity is upped, fast oxidative glycolytic muscle fibers, FOG, are recruited as they have a slightly large force being able to be made, and they still have a high level of fatigue. However, at some point the test will become too quick, and the fast glycolytic muscle fibers will be recruited and take over. These are the largest out of the three muscle fibers, and can produce the biggest force, but only for a small duration. In the dying ends of the fitness test, all the motor units are recruited to the fast glycolytic muscle fibers to sprint. On the other hand, the Wingate power test differs completely. At the beginning of the Wingate test, slow oxidative muscle fibers are recruited. However, they do not have the same amount of force required, so muscle fiber recruitment changes to fast oxidative glycolytic fibers, and they are quickly replaced because they do not carry enough force either. So, after a couple of seconds, the fast glycolytic fibers take charge. As soon as the Wingate test starts, there is a high intensity, and the test requires you to pedal at a maximum force. At this point, the largest diameter of the muscle fiber is recruited, with the largest force being created. However, they do fatigue quickly. Peak power generated by the athlete was 15.1 watts per kilogram. To get this force, the largest motor units were recruited, and as many motor units as possible for the large muscles in the legs, quads, and hamstrings. Although you can also see that the fast glycolytic fibers start to fatigue, and the force gradually decreases and plateaus as the test carries on. Whilst analysing the application of neuromuscular responses in rugby, it is clear that muscle fibre type can affect the game. Slow oxidative muscle fibre types may be used by most players to last the full duration of the game, preventing fatigue too early. However, during rugby, there are many times gross movements occur, such as sprinting for a try, being in a scrum, or tackling a player takes place. These skills require a large amount of force to be generated by the muscles. Therefore, in these scenarios, large motor units have been recruited. The recruitment of muscle fibers may switch in these times also to fast glycolytic or FOG. In my opinion, the most effective dominant muscle fiber type to have in rugby is a fast oxidative glycolytic fiber type. This would mean they do not fatigue too early like fast glycolytic, but they also have a decent amount of force being generated. When jogging in a game, and you aren't in play, smaller motor units will be recruited to the muscles, as there is no force needing to be generated.